Good morning. My name is Kacie Olson, and here's a picture of my family. I have 3 children and my husband. We just celebrated 10 years of marriage, and we have a new golden doodle named Barkley. A little bit about my job. So it's a little bit unique. I work for TASN, which is the Technical Assistance Systems Network, specifically for the project of KLN. So I am not actually at a specific school. And for those of you that are familiar with TASN, we'll know that we are a kind of a right arm of the Kansas State Department of Education, providing technical assistance to principals and districts. And so my role within that is kind of twofold. I'm an implementation coach and also a district facilitator. So which means that I work with both buildings, leadership teams, and district leadership teams all around continuous improvement. So what is a mission statement? My learning from the Center for School Change around mission and vision statement had 3 great driving questions. First one is a mission statement should always answer the question, whom do you seek to serve? So knowing that who is part of that is really important, and you should always see it in a mission statement. Also, what do you seek to accomplish? So not only whom do you seek to serve, but what are you going to do? What service are you going to provide to them? And then finally, the how. Embedded in a good mission statement, clearly and concise, it should be how will you proceed? What methods will you use? What's that philosophy that's driving it, or those core values? In comparison, the same article also had some information and a driving question around a vision statement, really projecting that future state. And so if your school is extremely successful over the next 3 to 5 years, how will people describe your school? Really projecting that narrative and that vision that you want for moving forward. So if we look at them together and knowing the role, what is the importance of them? This came from the article around Chris Drew wrote. It was 79 examples. And there were 3 things that really stood out to me on why I would say it's important to have a clear mission and vision. One, it keeps the school focused on the core purpose. So everything is moving in the same direction. All the efforts are going forward. Similarly to that, it becomes a guiding North Star. So everyone leans into it to make decisions. And so if there's a lot of good ideas and schools are very complex, and so when we make decisions, it needs to be in alignment with the mission and the vision. Also, this third one is one I had not yet considered. And it had talked about from the perspective of a family or a parent. I always thought it was great, to have a clear mission and vision so people know about the school, but I never used it in the way that a family might consider it as they're selecting a school and really making sure, does this meet our needs and is it aligned with our family's core values? And how did the school mission and vision work together? So as we said, the mission statement is really who you're serving, what you're doing, and your core values. So it's what you're there to do. It's your purpose. And the vision is really, I would say, the why. Where do you aspire to be? Why are you doing this? Where's your goal? Where do you hope to go? So they really work together and pair back and forth. So once you understand the mission and vision statement, it's important to think about how are you going to develop that using a collaborative method. And so the Georgia Leadership Institute, part of the Wallace Foundation, has some great ideas and steps to consider to build that. And I kind of summarize them. The first one is to gather data. And they posed a couple of questions that I took here, but what might be some of those unmet needs and wants within our community? So really thinking about that, what service is needed, what void could we fill, what might we provide value to the community? And then also leaning into what are the strengths of our school? What are we already doing well? And who are we that we could provide this service to? Step 2, then, they had mentioned starting draft with a small group. Who thinks similarly to me and might have the same vision and or core values? And so really starting with those like minds to get something on paper to get going. And then seeking feedback. I've seen this happen many times where we try to get too many voices right at the beginning and it's just kind of a mess. So after you have like an initial draft and you've got some core things in there, then seek feedback from others and really, I call it harvesting that diversity to making sure that it's equitable and inclusive. Also, how might we empower stakeholders to be a part of this process outside the school walls so that everyone is involved in this process right from the beginning, building collective ownership in the work? They have step 4 to be establishing timeline. I might have moved this up personally to the beginning to kind of establish a timeline because if it is going to be our decision-making mechanism, it's going to be important to have it before a lot of decisions get made. At the same time, we want this to be valuable work and happen organically. So there's a couple of questions that kind of I would pose to a team in that way. And then the final one I thought was fantastic to really look at now what. So we have a great mission and vision statement. Everyone's involved in it. Now what do we do with it? And the publishing and branding, there's a couple of questions around that to really know, is it accessible to everyone? Is it aligned to what we're doing? And how are we going to use it moving forward? So again, considering the processes for developing an actionable mission and vision attend to different values and priorities. So let's explore some of those lenses. Data use, really kind of looking at how are we going to measure our vision and how are we going to ensure we're implementing our mission with fidelity. And so looking at those measurements, is everyone clear? And a really clarity on, if we say we're going to equip people, what does it mean to equip? And can we actually measure that? How will we know if we're successful? Technology, we want to become adaptive. So we want to make sure we're always considering technology and using it to become more effective and efficient. We had talked already about core values and the need to include those from all stakeholder groups into our mission and vision. These next two I consider hand in hand. They're really about equity, ensuring successful outcomes for all learners. Are we all involved in that? And then the diversity is, as you're building it, are we really thinking flexibly through all the multiple perspectives and voices that are out there to build this as a team? Digital citizenship is another one. We need to make sure that we are preparing and equipping teachers and students to be in the best position possible to become positive digital citizens. And community. So there's a couple around here. Again, what are those unmet needs within our community that we could meet in our mission statement? And then what is that narrative we're hoping to shift? This is a big one in several of the schools I support. They don't like the narrative that they have from their community, or they're seen in a negative light. And so attacking the vision and really shifting that vision can help control the narrative, which essentially does help shift behaviors. And so from Matthew Lynch in the 5 Keys to an Effective Mission Statement article, he listed some of the characteristics of a well-written mission statement and vision statements that we want to make sure and include. And this one is huge. Sometimes we get so emotionally connected to our mission and vision that we forget we're there for the true academics. And so we want to make sure it's definitely academic focused. Their objectives are clearly expressed. They're clearly displayed. Do we all know what they are and where they are? Can we be very clear about what it is and have that common language? And then does it go to scale? So once this group and this team has created it, do we see it being presented in all the different classrooms? And is it being actively modeled in our everyday behavior so that there is congruence? And then on the flip side, what are some barriers or problems that we experience with mission and vision? The one is sometimes they're very wordy and it's confusing. And we're like, this sounds beautiful, but I actually need a translator to figure out what it actually means. Also, they're easily hidden, right? We create it, we wrote it, and then we forget to put it anywhere, or we hide it in our website and people have to dig to find it. That shouldn't happen. They're irrelevant. So are they familiar with all stakeholders in the school, or is it just relevant to a small group? I put tires here for alignment, making sure it's aligned to everything we're doing in the day-to-day activities. So it's actually very focused and intentional. And then do we hold each other accountable as instructional leaders? Are we reinforcing it? Are we supporting it? And then another barrier is when people aren't involved in the process, they really don't support it. And so they might even sabotage it. But we want to make sure that all stakeholders in the school support the mission, and making them a part of that process can help with that. So as I give a critique on the mission and vision, there's definitely some advantages. And I'm going to pop these up here, but keeping things focused, aligned, coherent. Schools are very complex and we can move in a lot of different directions. And so we want to make sure we have a North Star guiding us. And so that way all of our efforts are really moving forward and launching us forward. Sometimes when we're moving all in separate directions, we can become stagnant, even though we're working really hard. And the biggest one here is getting people involved in this process is we have collective ownership from the beginning. So they're emotionally connected. They've been a part of that process. They're much more likely, based on what we know about behavior theory, to then change their behaviors or to be in congruence with that. Some potential barriers that I've seen are very common. A lot of times it's just word versus actual content of what we're actually doing. And it sounds really beautiful, but doesn't really make an impact on what we're actually doing. This one is a big one. It's especially the beginning of the year, we get excited and we revamp the mission and vision as almost an onboarding or a team building activity. And that's it. It's nothing more than an event. Sometimes it can feel like a constant state of starting over. This one's very relevant in schools, probably more so than businesses, because there's a lot of turnover on leadership and really wanting, and we also have a new year, like a new school year, new mission and vision. So we just constantly feel like we're starting over and never gaining traction. So that could be something we want to be mindful of. Okay, so what are my personal mission and vision statements of the organizations I work with? TASN and the Kansas Learning Network have two kind of separate ones I found. And mission statements. And so, the TASN provides technical assistance to districts, and then KLN, our specific one, is ensuring successful outcomes for all learners. And then from KSDE, we have the same vision, since we're all part of that group. Kansas leading the world in the success of all students. So, it's an alignment with it. Vision is projected state and mission is the current state. So if I was to propose some feedback, I might give the following feedback. So for the vision statement, possibly clarifying outcomes. How will we know we're leading the world? What does that actually mean? And then maybe on the mission statement, combining those so they're not so separate. So knowing that we're in service to both districts and students ultimately, and then also leaders maybe in that as well, because that's what we primarily work with. And then how does this promote basically and support educational success and well-being of all students? Well, going back to what I had in those advantages, if you can get this stuff right in a system, you are positioning yourself to get high results because you're really focused on that academic outcomes. Standard correlation, just a couple of feedback here, definitely aligned, knowing how to construct, model, and leverage a mission and vision statement now and as a future leader. So very aligned and definitely relevant because a lot of the teams that I work with either are starting over in their mission and vision, don't know where to start with mission and vision, don't know the difference between them. And so very relevant, and it promotes clarity, and it's just a foundational piece. When it comes to the reflection, three big things that popped out to me were having a common language. So really understanding the difference between mission and vision. I think this helped solidify that in me as a learner. Also the creation. I loved thinking about the processes and learning about the different considerations for writing a mission and vision. Getting all those different lenses and elements in is complex. And so I appreciated some of the ideas that the articles provided, which led to the resources that I now have in my back pocket and I can use myself or for future states. And here are the references used in this assignment. Thank you for your time.